John.
Hey, Marty.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you too. It's been a short week. It seems like we just did this a week ago.
Yeah, isn't today Saturday?
Yeah, I know. So
But it's good.
it is. Yeah. Had a full week. Good week.
Yeah, I've been I picked up working on my book again, and as I've shared with you, my book is about integrating the work that I've learned, or the information I've learned from Ken Wilber, with the information I've learned from you and the accountability practice. And I discovered last week, in an almost offhand kind of way, that one of my nephews does editing. So I talked to him this morning about helping me edit this book, and he's very interested in accountability and Ken Wilber, and 33 years old, and so he's agreed to help me. So
That's great.
yeah, I sent off the first chapter, and we'll see what happens.
Very good. Yeah, I have a lot of supportive people. One of them includes you, being you, around me to help do this work, grow this work. So it's really cool. Yeah, I don't do it by myself.
I had somebody ask me this week, somebody involved in the Rusty Nail accountability practice work, if you'd written a book. And I said, not in the sense that you probably mean it, that John's put together a workbook that is designed to support us doing this work, but not a theoretical framework or a historical framework for it. So I said, you can wait and read my book, because it's in there.
Cool.
But
yeah,
but I think that it's what I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about today. Is, again, we've talked about this all the time, but that this is not a theoretical work. This is not a philosophical inquiry. This is not an intellectual exercise. This is a very practical and pragmatic process by which we each, those of us who undertake it, get to learn ever more about ourselves. And for me, that includes getting in touch with my desire center deep in my heart. What is it that I'm here to manifest? What do I want to manifest in this life? And so the value of accountability to me has always been, it's very practical, it's very direct. The process that we use here, by understanding that the issue is not the issue, and understanding that it's not about the other person, understanding that hurt people, and all those principles that we use are all designed to help me go to the heart of that which I have been hiding from myself, or that which I've been afraid to take a look at. And that once I'm able to do that, the world changes. The world changes.
Almost instantaneously. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's an amazing process. It's an experiential process. It does have basic information about our mechanism, and how the adult children of alcoholics 12-step call it dysfunctional family trauma or misinformation, and whatever trauma anybody went through in their childhood created a pattern of behavior that fit what they needed to survive, and it's simply in place, and nobody understands that actually the power of this mechanism, once it's been charged with a duty, which is to keep me safe. As a child, if the way I kept safe was to freeze, dissociate, go away, then I find myself as an adult doing that in public, and it's like embarrassing and disconcerting, and then I have to explain to people what's going on with me in a rational way, and there's nothing rational about it. And it actually creates more trauma with not knowing where it came from. But I want to say people have this basic understanding that stress causes disease or problems or pain. And yet that's as far as it goes. And they say, be stress-free, meditate. And with all this trauma stuck inside that is working in the mechanism that is the most powerful mechanism on the planet, which is our survival mechanism, with misinformation about who I am and how I relate to people, it's cunning, baffling, and powerful, and it's totally inside us. It's totally in the mechanism of the human being. And when we talk about it and discuss this, hopefully it creates curiosity in people about, why do I do the things I do when I know I don't want to do them, and yet I do them over and over and over? Well, I have an explanation, not the explanation. And it comes from childhood trauma that's been set into the survival mechanism, and it's looking out for your best interest. So if somebody asks you a question you don't want to answer, it says scream, yell, or withhold, or go away. And it trumps your logic. It trumps my logic, trumps my rational brain.
So would you be willing to talk a little bit more about trauma? Because my experience is that people think trauma is something dramatic or enormous, and therefore, I wasn't sexually abused or I wasn't physically beaten, so I didn't really have trauma. And when in fact my experience is, and my observation is, every child experiences trauma by nature of being born and having to go through acculturation in one's environment, hopefully one's family, or for those unfortunate few that get raised in an orphanage or something like that. But everybody experiences some degree of trauma. Isn't that true?
Yeah. And trauma comes from being dismissed, ignored, having somebody redefine your reality, like a little child maybe not expressing I have anger, but is in the behavior of I'm angry, and telling it to be something different than what it is, instead of recognizing, oh, I see you're angry, or I see you're frustrated, or I see you're having a hard time. And what do you need from me? I don't say, what do you need from me, from my grandson, but what do you want to do? And nurture it instead of saying, no, you can't do that. When I was a child, the common sense saying was, children are to be seen and not heard. So whenever I articulated something, I was told to shut up. So I grew up, I get in a relationship with a woman, and I don't talk. And she goes, how come you don't talk? And I said, well, I haven't got anything to talk about. I mean, it doesn't even enter my mind that I was conditioned not to talk.
So can we, that's a great example. Now, I'd like to drill down on that a little bit again for the newcomer. So how is it that when someone tells you to shut up, or you're not, I don't want to hear from you, or whatever, how is that traumatic? In the sense that we're using it.
Children are learning 4 things, and I'm taking this from my drug and alcohol experience.
Okay.
When an addict comes in as an adult, our job throughout the industry, I believe, is 4 things: emotional regulation, impulse control, frustration tolerance, and delayed gratification. Well, as a child, you have none of those skills. So instead of being nurtured, like crying because you don't get the second cookie before dinner and being valued, coming from a place of value and love, you're told, oh, you're going to ruin your dinner. And just being curt or short or demeaning or demanding about that cuts off the availability for the child to learn and experience themselves in their frustration, instead of being told you're a bad kid. So the child takes the reprimand or the shut up as I did something wrong, and it becomes internalized as I'm bad, instead of okay, I can't have a second. It's not about me. People still love me. I'm not ostracized, told to go to my room because I want a second cookie, and I'm frustrated, and I'm, screaming, and whatever it is that child does, they're under the guise of discipline. And we don't want this little guy to grow up and be a criminal. We dismiss or redefine or diminish them in some way, so that we don't have to deal. Well, I'm going to say so I don't have to deal. And I'm thinking about my kids and how I treated my kids when they were young. I didn't have time. I was busy. I was working, or I was having my downtime with my Miller Lite, or it's Miller time. And I didn't have the time for them. So they internalize that as there's something wrong with them. So they build an identity, or there's all kinds of things in there. Us trying to explain it in 5 minutes. It affects their identity, who they are and how they relate to people. It affects their belief about their value. And they see themselves as the cause, which means I'm bad. And I'll stop there.
I think there's an important nuance that's I haven't heard you mention yet, which is not only is all that true, and I can vouch for that in my own experience, but at the same time, there is a powerful emotional pain that is felt when I'm told, shut up, go to your room, don't cause trouble. That's almost visceral. It's like being, for me, when I finally got in touch with that pain, it was like feeling I was punched in the gut, literally punched, so that the feeling was the air was knocked out of me. I couldn't breathe, and it hurt so much that not only did I have to develop defenses against the aggression coming from the outside, but at the same time, I had to develop a defense against ever feeling that again. Because the feeling is so overwhelming to a little kid that he or she can do nothing but emotionally double over and move into a defensive position.
Yes.
So I think it's not that emotional impact is perhaps the more subtle thing to be able to get in contact with as adults, because it took me years to re-experience that, John. And I tell you what, when I re-experienced it, I said, how did little Marty ever survive this? Because I'm barely surviving it as an adult, and it's not actually happening here. It's just a recovered memory.
See, that emotional trauma, fracture, energetic hit was stored in your body, and it wants to protect itself. So then the behaviors develop from that need to be safe.
Yeah.
And I tell people in my groups to move towards their pain. And it's almost like I see them back up. It's like, or clench. And then I qualify that with not the pain that you created in avoiding your original pain, but that original pain you felt as a child of being dismissed or ignored or abused or physically abused, and or they call it psychological abuse. Our emotional body is as real as our physical body, and more sensitive to relationship issues. And that's what gets fractured, is our emotional body. I kind of lost my line of thought. So I don't know, help me out here.
Well, I was talking about how that feeling impact, the emotional energy, is as much what is being defended against ever experiencing again, as well as that sense that I don't matter, I don't belong, I'm not important.
They're all one thing.
They're all
That's
one
what I.
thing. Exactly.
They're all one thing. It's like we break down mind, body, spirit. Well, I don't know. We are mind, body, spirit. That's one thing, and we talk about it in three different aspects. It's one thing. So when I am emotionally fractured or hit or abused, that affects my whole body, and then my body is designed to house it, to remember it, to remember it, and it gets stuck in this loop, in this stuffed place, and it's always available for the next time, and it'll wait 50 years, and it'll go, oh, there it is again, and the behavior, my behavior would be screaming, yelling, stomping my feet, running up to the bedroom, slamming the door, and the only thing that's going on is the toast is burnt. It's like, what? And it's confusing. It's baffling, cunning, baffling, and powerful. So we've developed a starting point to address the trauma, and it starts with, really, my question to people when I first meet them is, what do you want that you don't have? What are you looking for? That orients your mind, body, spirit to take in new information. And then I talk about this mechanism that's standing in their way. And it's all this trauma that's in the subconscious pool of information that is charged with protecting me based on what it knows. And that is my conscious and subconscious experiences all developed to create where I am right now today, like being here and not having whatever it is I'm asking for. And for me, it was peace. I don't have peace. Well, the thing standing in the way is my experience, what brought me to a place where I have no peace. So it's internal. And then I explained the reticular activating system, fight, freeze, and there's one more, please, fight, freeze, please mechanism that is charged to keep me safe, and it's operating under misinformation. And the misinformation is how I put together the trauma, me, and how I relate to the world around me, people, places, and things.
We started off, I asked a question for the newcomer to understand the universality and the impact of trauma. And
Right.
I once heard you say, I don't know if it was on this podcast or in another place, that trauma is essentially an emotion that was not allowed to complete its journey through the body.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say with the example of wanting the second cookie. To allow the child to express, which is I'm mad, screaming, yelling, stomping feet, or whatever they no, in a from a place of nurturing that is firm. It's not, we're not going to let the child have the second cookie because we're interested in its physical welfare, which is eating patterns, or however that works. And I don't ostracize because they want a second cookie and they created a fuss. I simply witness, talk, and be there for them to relieve that frustration. The story I talked about my grandson being up in his room because his mom left, and he was asked to go up to his room. He's screaming, yelling, "I don't want you up here. I want you to go home." And I said, I'm hearing you say you want me to go home, and there's nobody here, so I'm going to stay. And then I went up the stairs and sat on the top of the stairs, and he was still upset. He was still trying to regulate that emotion of missing his mother because she had just left. And I sat there, and I opened up to, okay, I'll be here with you when you go through this. And I found myself saying, instead of, how come you're such a pain in the ass, to I want you to know that I love you. And he just melted, and he was able to release that frustration. He was nurtured through it, and still seen as loved and wanting to be close to. I didn't want to like not be with him, and that relieved that feeling, so that he knows that he has a way to get through that. Whether he knows that, mentally, rationally, no, but its body remembers that this is the way you relieve. You connect with somebody, or you listen, or whatever his process is. And my process was, I connect, I listen to him, I don't dismiss, demean, or redefine that reality. I simply breathe and then do what I think I need to do to support him through that. So hopefully that trauma won't be stuck in him when he's 16 and somebody says, let's go do this, and he goes, I think that's a good idea, and he gets into some avoidant behavior or a pattern that resulted from that trauma, from that experience. So we'll see how that works.
A couple of wise ass comments jumped into my mind as you were sharing that. One of them is everybody should have a grandfather who has plenty of time to hang out with the kid.
Yeah.
Who has gone through accountability practice.
Yeah.
Well,
I agree.
Because the challenge that we have is, even I was thinking back in the 70s when there was parent effectiveness training, PET. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And it talked about active listening and other kinds of tools that you can do to reduce the traumatic response in a child. But what I came to realize as we've done this practice, and particularly in light of what I know from Ken Wilber's integral model, that if the parent brings unhealed childhood trauma to his or her parenting, if he or she hasn't had exposure to understanding this, he's just going to pass it on.
Yes.
Because he or she is just simply unaware that there's unhealed trauma in him or her, and therefore it's just going to come out because there's no awareness, there's no choice, there's no consciousness, there's still just impulse. And so I'm going to see when my little kid's throwing a trauma, I'm going to be triggered. My own unhealed childhood trauma is going to be triggered, and I'm going to respond like my parents did.
Yes.
And I'm going to smack the kid, or I'm going to change his reality, or I'm going to do something that's going to just pass it on.
Right.
So I was thinking about where all this came from, John, since you can't be a mind reader, is accountability training for young parents. And thinking that if we had a group of young parents in a room, that the first thing we would do is help them discover their own childhood trauma.
Yeah.
Move toward that pain, so that they would have a visceral sense of what they might not want to pass on to their kid and why they might want to learn other techniques.
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully out of this body of work that we're doing with the Rusty Nail meeting and the meeting I'm going to start Saturday morning, is that somebody will take that on. How this is working is, one of my clients was, you were in politics, and you're bringing this style of communication to your job. I have in mind, one of the guys is financial planner for one of the big financial groups in the country, and he's bringing that into his team meetings, talking about emotion and accountability. Another person I know is in advertisement marketing, and she just got assigned a team of people to train, and she has this information. And I just gave her permission to use intentional living and arrange it to fit her bailiwick, what she does, and make it sound rational and reasonable to the people she's talking to. So it's spreading. And I believe that somebody, it will go all over in that manner. My charge is to talk to you and build the body of work and do the meetings. And it's working. It's moving on. It is actually exciting to watch. So.
Yeah, I think I mentioned to you, we have a gentleman from Dubai who occasionally drops into the Rusty Nail meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 12 hours difference.
Yeah, that's so that's 6:30 in the morning for him.
Right. But
That's cool.
But the power of it is universal. And I think that and it's just like, you know, your opening question that you raise when you're dealing with folks for the first time is like, what do you want that you don't have?
Right.
And the beauty of the work also consists of the fact that it doesn't matter where you are in your life, your development. There's something in this process for you.
Yeah. And I wanna emphasize that it starts with you realizing that you want something different than what you have.
Right.
That opens that mechanism inside you. You're at least curious because the body of information you and I have is so far out of frame of reference for most people. It's like talking, like you ask a question to a guru, you know, it's like, what's the meaning of life? And they say some asinine thing like, well, that's up to you. And it's like, instead of giving you the answer, it's like, and it is up to you, but that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for a fix. You're looking for a way out. You're looking for how to better control people, or you're looking for how to please people better. And it has nothing to do with that. And finding out what it is you want is the beginning of this process. It opens you up, opens up that frame of reference, just puts a little crack in it so that something new can get in, which is, it's all inside you. You've been traumatized, and that trauma, your behavior is in alignment with what happened to you, whether it was trauma. You don't have to call it trauma. You can call it being somebody was rude to you. Okay, it's your behavior is in alignment with that. It's not right or wrong, good or bad. It does hurt. Avoidant behavior, alcoholism, drug addiction, codependency, sex addiction, shoe shopping, it all leads to destruction and separation. That's true. It hurts. It's destructive. It's not out of alignment with what happened to you. It's not good. You're not a good person, nor are you a bad person. You're simply a person in alignment with the information given to you. Trauma, rude, dismissed, ignored, and that behavior is simply in alignment. And the accountability process, when we go to where I find myself, arrogant, entitled, mean, controlling, or needy, it's without blame or judgment. It's arrogance is in alignment with what happened to me as a child. It's reasonable that I'm arrogant based on how my parents treated me.
You might even say it's lawful.
Yes, yes, and it's sanctioned. A lot of these things are sanctioned, and it's built into our language so that we reinforce it instead of like, or maybe that's a problem for you, or we don't even have the wherewithal to ask the question, really. Accept the question, what do you want that you don't have? That's a specific, mind-bending start. It's the first step of what that Chinese philosopher says, a journey of 1,000 miles. What do you want that you don't have?
I think that this gives a little bit of illumination, a different illumination for me of one of our principles, which is I'm always getting what I want.
Yep.
And we talked about in an earlier podcast that this power of desire is universal, and it's also fundamental. That the human organism can't not want something to be going on, and usually what that wanting is related to our sense of being alive.
Yes.
Not just surviving, but also thriving.
Yes.
And so it is not possible that I cease wanting at any time. And the challenge that we have, therefore, is another key element in this work, which is that most of our emotional mental process occurs in the subconscious, where I'm not consciously aware of it. So that's also where much of the desiring is happening. So that if I'm attracting something that I say I don't want consciously, then we could say it's almost a law that then looks for the subconscious, because you're subconsciously desiring this because you're attracting it.
Can I give you an example?
Yeah.
People come to me and say they self-sabotage. In other words, they failed. And I offer them, self-sabotage is the success of a hidden belief.
Right.
There's something in you that says either you're not worthy, or you don't deserve, or you're not good enough. And it's directing you not to pass a certain point. Because if you do, then that directive would be, you'd be crazy. It'd be, that's not correct. It would be out of alignment with the message, internal message you have. So self-sabotage is actually the success of a hidden belief. The accountability process, we talked about that, owning the character defect, breathing, saying what you want, and owning the character defect brings up the trauma frequency feeling. You say, I'll use an example, I'm arrogant, and I get it. Yeah, wow. And then I say, it is my intent to be kind. It actually fuses with that vibration. Meshes, I don't know if mesh is the right word, fuses with that vibration, and then goes back down into my subconscious, different than the trauma. I've given myself that nurturing that I'm giving my grandson. I'm staying with me and saying, oh, that hurts. I'm arrogant. That hurts. That's like, oh my God. And nurturing myself, and then saying what I want that's different than what I'm realizing that's internal with me. And it goes back down into my subconscious, and I am a changed individual. I have a different, although sometimes minimally, slight, incrementally different set of directives motivating all my behaviors.
So for the newcomer, I just want to point out that because desire is always there and it's universal, the way I heard you say what you just said, John, is that I'm now bringing consciousness to my desires. Mm-hmm. So that all of this desiring that's going on in my human organism, I'm desiring to feel warm, I'm desiring to feel fed, I'm desiring to feel at some level of stasis and homeostasis and all those kinds of things. I'm now bringing consciousness. So I can want something else based on a deeper current of information in my soul or in my heart that can now be manifested in that process that you just described, by hooking my conscious desire with that current, that emotional current that prompted my inquiry in the first place. Mm-hmm. And then it's transformed. Now, oftentimes we don't say this necessarily explicitly in accountability, but certainly in the 12-step program, we talk about a higher power. And that I often tell people in our accountability meetings that when I set my intention, I intend to feel joy, peace, freedom, community. I own that I don't know how to do that myself. If I knew how to do it, I'd already have it. So
Yeah.
the image I use is that an intention is like sending an order to the God kitchen. And for the God to prepare that and send it back out of the kitchen. We have no idea how it was cooked. We have no idea what the ingredients are. We just get the product.
Yes. I like that analogy.
So there's like a sense of trust when I set an intention. There's an implied higher power in intention setting, that there's some mechanism outside of my conscious control and even my conscious understanding that produces the result.
Yes.
And my conscious mind then can look back and see it once it's happened and go, oh my gosh, how did that happen? I don't know, but it's happened.
Right. And when people say, I don't know, it's happened, I lead them back to connect it to the intent.
Right.
And I'll ask them, what was the intent you created at the beginning of the group, or what was the intent you created when I first saw you? And that'll be the demonstration that that intent is effective. There's efficiency in the intent. And when I made the connection between where I find myself, new place, to that intent, I got on that train. I'm going to create an intent, and I'm also going to preface it with stating current reality. That's the effective part. That's I believe what Christ meant when he says the truth will set you free. Well, the truth is I'm arrogant. No blame, no judgment, in alignment with childhood experience. We can call it experience trauma. And it is my intent to be kind. My body feels it in that moment, this relief. People say it's relief, it's ease, it's that freedom that I've been looking for. And it's in the most unconvenient, unlikely place there is it me saying the truth about what I don't want people to know about me, or I see as if I own arrogant, then I am all those things my parents said I was. Then I am screwed. See there, we were right. No, arrogance is in alignment with their treatment, their projection onto me. Now that I've owned it, I can ask for something different.
Exactly.
Yeah. Really cool.
I had an experience last night I'd like to share with you because it illustrated for me the fact that this work yields unintended consequences, or maybe a better way to say it, intended consequences beyond what I thought was possible.
There you go. Yeah.
So we were starting the meeting, and before each meeting, we do a silent check-in where we take a minute and we just check in silently with ourselves. And it occurred to me that there was something that I'd been hiding from sharing with the group, and that I wanted to be willing to be vulnerable and share this hidden secret with the group.
Wow.
So then I checked in and I said that, and I said, I'm feeling shame and embarrassed to tell you about this because I have a belief that I should have already solved this problem. So then we went through the rest of the check-ins, and several people had something they wanted to work on. And then it was finally my turn. And as I was listening to other people share, John, I had this utterly unexpected experience. And the experience was, I don't need to feel ashamed about this. This is just what is. This is some behavior that I've been exhibiting. I know where it comes from in my childhood trauma. And I don't really actually feel ashamed about it anymore. I'm just going to tell people what it is. And it's like, I would never have predicted that in a million years, because what I noticed, all the awareness included all this. I noticed that there was something about feeling shamed that made me feel special, almost like I'm a special victim. And then that was arrogance. It's like my shame is so shameful that I need to, and I can actually feel my body being like in a hangdog kind of, I really don't know if I can tell you guys all this. And it's like, and all of a sudden, some part of me just said, forget that. I don't need that. I'm just going to say what was going on.
There you go.
And like, So I raised this to share with folks that there's depth to this work. There's depth.
That you have no idea it's coming and what form is coming.
Right.
Yes. It opens me up to, well, options, choice, difference, realizations. I call them BFOs, blinding flashes of the obvious. I don't need to feel shame. I can share
Right.
this. And one of the rules in the family of origin dysfunction is don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. And breaking those rules to the mechanism, reticular activating system, the survival mechanism, is like crossing over the deadline, the dire consequences. And then when I find myself doing it in a meeting, or like you found yourself doing it, and there was nothing happened, and it's like, oh my God. And now, when I first got into ACA, I didn't talk. 8 months I didn't talk, and after that it was sporadic. Now it's like, what do you want to know about me? It's like, what do you think the worst thing you can call me is? And I'll listen and go, yeah, I know I'm a liar. Yeah, I bet I've lied. I'm a thief. Yeah, I know. I'm doing that right now, probably. So that frenetic need to hide that is gone. It's like, I'm a human being just like anybody else. I have my faults and my peculiarities, and I actually like who I am.
Exactly.
The way I am, yeah.
Well, just to follow up on something you said a few minutes ago, it just occurred to me that experience that I just shared with you about the experience last night is also the manifestation of my intention to experience love as joy, peace, freedom, and community.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt free of that shame energy.
Wow.
And I felt in community to just be willing to just say, here's what happened, here's what I did. And it was, again, this won't shock you, but as I was sharing that, the solution to the issue became clear to me. And so I said, okay, and here's what I'm going to do about it.
Yeah.
So I actually worked on that this morning. I asked for the help that I needed. And again, I was actually blown away by the information I got back.
Wow.
And so today I feel completely free of that entire burden that I was creating to create some kind of child of origin energy feeling safe and secure in feeling small and bunched up.
Yep.
And so I just want to let folks know that we're not into, this process isn't designed to get rid of that. I don't know that we can. We may be able to, but rather my word is this is a process to befriend that.
Yes.
To befriend that traumatized little kid that lives in each of us, the way you befriended Solomon when he was feeling that energy of frustration.
Mm-hmm.
You just befriended him. Mm-hmm. You just said, hey, it's okay with me. I love you. Mm-hmm. And that's the energy that I'm intending to bring to me when that traumatized experience resurfaces.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. It's, adult children of alcoholics call that nurturing parent, loving parent.
Right. It's reparenting. I think we've talked about that before, that accountability is a way to teach me how to reparent myself into that loving state of unconditional connectivity.
Mm-hmm. I just had a thought. Love is experience without blame or judgment.
Right.
It's simply experiencing what it is as it is, and then asking for if you want something different, ask for it. If it's cool, join in or do more, do it again. Moving from reactive to proactive.
Including, this is for me, although I'd love to hear if there's an analog for you in your life, recognizing that oftentimes when I'm feeling violent towards someone, I'm angry with you, or I'm indicting you for having done something to hurt me or whatever, it's taken me a long time to realize that that's just my twisted way of asking for love.
Yes.
And so I've begun practicing when I'm feeling that, just asking, say, I need a little love in here. Would you be willing to be with me in a loving way?
Mm-hmm.
But, why don't we just ask for love by asking for love?
Mm-hmm.
And I've never been told no.
Yeah.
I've never been refused.
Yeah.
In fact, the act of asking for it often reduces the feeling of loneliness or fear
Yes.
before the other person even says a word.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because you just gave it to yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's what counts. That's really cool.
Well, that's the origin of I'm always getting what I want.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm engaging my desires as my allies, consciously, purposefully, with power. And what gets produced then is this shift in awareness and emotional state.
Yeah. I wrote something about that a couple days ago. I'd like to read it. So,
Please.
when you recognize, embrace, and nurture the resistance to a feeling, you'll find the doorway to the heart that is waiting for your knock.
You stole that from Rumi.
That
sounds very Rumi-esque.
Yeah, I am so grateful to because it really feels good. Yeah.
You froze for a second, John.
When somebody hears it, they'll, okay, I'm back in the grace of this gift of being able to write these short, concise, feeling tone phrases and words, and yeah. So, and I would offer that's who I am. That's my authentic self. I'm able to express authentically, genuinely, organically, and it flows through me. I'm not in the old trauma, which is trying to remember everything so I don't act foolish. If I wouldn't have been able to write that 10 years ago because I didn't want anybody to think I was full of myself. It's like, no, that's
or that woo-woo.
That woo-woo stuff. Yeah, tree huggy, bubblehead, new agey bubblehead stuff.
Well, it's as you know, that it's often said that poetry is the language of the soul.
Yeah.
Because we're seeking to express in words that which cannot be directly conveyed in words.
Yeah.
But a feeling tone or an in-between the lines-ness is also a method by which we can communicate.
I don't know, it's from one of his poems or the Hafid or Gibran, and it says the poem's called The Guest, and the line says, it is, and it ties into what we talk about desire and asking for what you want that you don't have. It is the longing for the guest that does all the work. And that's that desire thing you were talking about, and that we want something meaningful and that has substance to it instead of where I found myself. It's the longing that does the work. Boy, we came full circle on that one, huh?
Well, I was thinking that it's the Christian mystical tradition and the Islamic. So the Western mystical traditions talk about the impulse in each human being longing for reunion with the Creator. And that's what drives us in our creative lives, that longing. And I would equate that to the desire center that we've been talking about. I think longing is a more profound state than just mere desire.
Yeah. Yeah. Really good. Yeah.
But that could be arguing about how many angels dance on the head of a pin. It's not that essential to being in the accountability work.
Right. The accountability work led to this.
Exactly.
And it will lead to something for everybody what's in there.
Yeah, because there is a creative genius inside each of us longing to be released. And that genius is not necessarily in writing poetry or music. It could be in running track or playing baseball or kayaking.
Financial planning or marketing or
exactly. Even
accounting.
Even politics.
Yeah. Especially politics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I love this work, because I get to release my own divine genius, and then I get to play with everybody else who's working on partnering with God, the higher power, to release theirs. So
yeah, very cool.
So we have come full circle here. It's been about an hour. Any closing thoughts that you'd like to throw out there?
Let me read one of my other.
Please.
Now that I'm in a. Okay, it's about this owning character defects. Another way to say it is shadow work. And I wrote this last week, I think. And I call it, It's Time. It's time to bring the shadow work into the light. No more hiding in the shadows, waiting for a reprieve. Let's step out and grab the bastard by the neck and demand a reconciliation. I will stand and acknowledge the value that the shadow has given, which has allowed me to notice that I've passed a certain point. It may have been a breakup that left a residual of doubt that needed acknowledgement. That doubt that hung on for dear life, intending and promising a modicum of relief, a hedged bet, a safety net with holes large enough to fall through. Bring that gracious bastard to stand in the alcove, no longer behind a pillar or stuck under the cornerstone. Make a place on the fascia to stand out in the ornamental sections of the architecture, so that we can all see firsthand and fall to our knees in gratitude for this inglorious bastard. I am now ready to wear my doubt on the forehead of my mind, so that it becomes the guide light of my journey. Booyah.
I'd say amen.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, John Donovan.
You're welcome.
In beautiful Oceanside, California. This is Marty Keller in Sacramento saying, have a great weekend.